Noun pluralization. In this video, I want to introduce you to some concepts of morphology by looking at the way that nouns get pluralized in different languages. Pluralization is an interesting phenomenon because it seems to exist in every language, but how it's realized can vary quite dramatically from language to language. I want to begin by the notion of a linguistic universal. So linguistic universals are these features of languages that seem to exist in every known language. Now, I'm going to just suggest ones that have been posited. In every case, somebody has suggested that there is a language out there that doesn't have that feature. But these are ones that are at least commonly accepted to be linguistic universals. One is to have nouns and verbs. It seems that the parts of speech that languages have minimally are divided into nouns and verbs. Another concept that seems to be universal is that their sentences are divided into phrases and minimally noun phrases and verb phrases. And then the notion of a sentence itself seems to be a linguistic universal. When we're thinking about sounds, it seems that the sound templates of a language, that is the phonemes of a language, get divided into consonants and vowels. And then just the notion of morpheme itself seems to be a linguistic universal. And then finally, the one that we're interested in is plural. It's been argued that every language has the notion plural, but how it's realized, as I said, can differ from language to language. So one way that we can do it that would seem to be very straightforward would be simply to have separate words indicating whether it's singular or plural. And that seems to be how the language Mosquito from Nicaragua and Honduras does it. So we start with the noun aros, meaning horse. And if we want to indicate that it's a single horse, we say aros cum. And if we want to indicate that that's several, so a small number of horses, then we would say aras cum cum. You see a bit of reduplication there. So that number word cum gets reduplicated to say that it's plural. And then finally, if we want to talk about a larger number of horses, we would say aras nani. So there, again, it's the separate words, it's not the noun itself that indicates plurality. Another way that we could do it is something that we see in English, and it's an exception, obviously. Most nouns in English are pluralized on the noun by using an affix, a suffix specifically. But there are the small number of words where the singular and plural form of the noun are identical. So take deer. So if we want to indicate that deer is singular, we can only do it through subject-verb agreement. So if we want it to be singular, we would have to say the deer is here. And if we want to indicate that there are more than one deer, then we would say the deer are here. So that's subject-verb agreement. It's a part of syntax that indicates the plurality there. Another very common way cross-linguistically is to simply use morphology. So one way would be to have an affix for singular and an affix for plural, as we see with Russian, where you've got a singular suffix and a plural suffix. In Ilocano, a language of the Philippines, we see, again, reduplication, which also seems to be a fairly common way to indicate pluralization, is just to simply repeat part of the noun. So galding would be the word for goat, and if you want to pluralize it, then you repeat the gal, galding. And likewise, cat is pusa, and then plural would be puspusa. And for class, it's classe versus classe. We also see alternation. So in German, the only difference between the singular for apple and the plural for apple is in the vowel, that initial vowel. So we say Apfel versus Äpfel. In the second one, Sohn versus Söhne, we actually see two processes at work at once. We have alternation, so that O becomes fronted to become Ö, a front rounded vowel. but we also see the plural suffix. And likewise in Frisian, we again see an alternation, but we also see a plural suffix. So we're getting both alternation and suffixes in these examples. In English, we mostly use suffixes to indicate plurality. So our regular nouns, like dog, becomes dogs. And notice that in dogs, the plural is a z sound, whereas in cat, the plural is a s, cats. And then with nose, we get an before the z, so it's noses. And in fact, I've got a separate video where I'll go over that regular pluralization in English. We also see some irregular plural suffixes, like the n that you get in oxen, and the run that you get in children, child versus children. You also notice that these vowels are different, so there's also an alternation with child and children. Woman and women is an interesting one because there's an alternation there, but I want you to notice that that's not the alternation that's in effect is not reflected in the spelling. If we were to look at the spelling, we would think that it's those vowels there that are alternating, but in fact, it's not. Those vowels, the second vowels, are pronounced the same as an What's actually changing is this vowel here, where it's pronounced as an woman, versus an women. So it's a little bit similar in that case to what we saw with the German, where you have that fronting, where a back vowel becomes a front vowel. We also see a dropping in this versus, tensing in this versus these. So that's an alternation as well. So we go from a lax vowel I to a tense vowel E, and then also that final consonant gets voiced. So it goes from the unvoiced S to the voiced Z. Another thing that we can see is that the plural may be realized multiple places. We saw that a little bit with the Frisian and German examples where you had both alternation and suffixation. But we can even see it realized sort of spreading across phrases. So in English, for example, we've got the singular this book, and then the plural these books. So that single concept of plurality on the noun phrase gets realized both on the determiner this versus these and on the noun book versus books. In Spanish, we see something even more widespread where the singular, and forgive my pronunciation on all of these languages. I'll do my best to pronounce the Spanish, but I'm sure that the people in the audience who speak Spanish will laugh at my pronunciation. El libro interesante. The book interesting is how that glosses, but notice that when we pluralize it, the plural is realized in three different places. Los libros interesantes. And we can also get that on a indefinite, un libro interesante, an interesting book, versus unos libros interesantes, some books interesting or some interesting books.